So one thing before we move on to the appointment booking stuff that I wanted to talk about quickly, I kind of just realized it on the break here. Basically, with everything, like the only way that you grow is if you're in pain. So like if you're not, if you don't feel like you're struggling, then you're not doing the right thing. And I think this is important because everyone wants to like feel good and feel happy and experience pleasure. But if you want to grow, the only way to do it is through pain. That's literally it. So if you want an indication as to like, am I making progress or not? It's like, are you suffering? And if you're not in pain, then you're not growing. I mean, we get this from like we literally have it, but it's called growing pains, right? When you're growing up and you're in, pain because your body's growing. But it's the same thing, like for some reason in business, people don't understand that like, if you look at any other like field, like an athlete, for example, or anyone who's becoming a professional, like the only way that you experience expansion or growth is if you're in some sort of pain. And what you guys need to learn to do is basically just find the most painful thing and just keep doing it. And this is why setters or reps or anyone in your company, including yourself, the second you stop growing is when you stop feeling pain. Which is why when you get to the top, there's no pain, and then it's kind of an inevitable thing. Like it's kind of like you said, like Harvey, like when you were saying like, you've got the reserves and there's that comfort and stuff. Like it's kind of contradictory because you're here because you want to grow your business, right? And you want to make more money and you want to grow and you want to experience growth. But the only way to do that is by finding painful stuff to do. So I just kind of want you guys to remember that, like, it's not an easy message to deliver because no one wants to feel pain, but you kind of need to, otherwise you're screwed. Yeah, man?
Feels similar to Harvey in that regard. Like, got enough money, comfortable, like you've described before, can fly around if wanted to. Where would you suggest to look to find the pain?
Well, it's kind of like, so you're here, right? For a reason, because you want to grow the business and you want to expand, but you've kind of got this comfort thing, but you just need to like dig into that need for growth and like really explore it and really understand it and talk about it and properly sit with it and think about it, because it's kind of funny because the fact you've asked that question means that being comfortable is slightly painful for you. Do you know what I mean? Like there is pain in it because you're not growing. And so what a lot of people do is, the comfort thing, the complacency thing, it's kind of like a shield that you hold against the pain. And you tell yourself like, oh, I'm good. It's a hard thing to figure out, but it just depends. Like, I don't have like a silver bullet answer for that, unfortunately. I think maybe it's just like a way that you're wired or something, but the fact that you're here means that there's like a psychological thread to pull on. Because if you didn't care and you didn't want to grow and you truly had enough, then you would just, you'd act that out and behave that out. So I'd suggest just trying to explore that. And there's no playbook or answer to that.
I think one thing which works, and we did this at the beginning of the year, is make a big investment in something. Like spend some money on something where like you almost have to feel, you have to justify it, or you have to sort of work to make it justifiable. Like we did this with the Cole Gordon thing. Like we didn't really need it, but we felt like we had to sort of make some sort of painful decision where we put a lot of money into something so we can kind of, feel that sort of urge again. Like I see a lot with people that buy this mastermind, like it kind of clicks, like it
That's
turns
kind
on.
of what this was, yeah.
Well, yeah. I said, Thibaut, for example, I see a lot with you. Like you've made that, I'm sure you kind of already knew what to do, but I could see it with you, that sort of click. As soon as you made that sort of big mastermind investment, like it all of a sudden turned on, which helps a lot. Of course, the more money you make, the bigger that sometimes has to be, but it does work to a
There's
degree.
no answer. It's kind of just a struggle.
Yeah.
And like, if you're not struggling, then you're not growing. Like, we're experiencing this at the moment where like, we're at 8 figures and we want to get to multi-8 figures. And, Bo and I have got used to like a certain way of living and a certain lifestyle and stuff. And we've kind of realized that like, what happens when you plateau and you try and break that plateau is usually at the beginning you dip, right? And you go down. But then what happens if let's say that you've grown to a certain point and now you're you're plateaued, and let's say that you've been here for, 3 to 6 months and you've sort of been at the same level. And what usually happens is, in order for you to get to the next level, which might be up here, is you usually have to go down a little bit. Because you're going to have to start investing stuff, you're going to make slightly less profit, you're going to make a ton of mistakes, and they're going to cost you a lot of money. But what happens is, because people get used to a certain sort of emotional state here, which is basically just comfort, as soon as they start dipping, they then revert back to this behavior to get back to the point in which they were before, if that makes sense. So what you need to learn to do is sort of weather this emotional storm. Like, we're doing this at the moment where, we're now spending 10 grand a day on ads. We're trying to aggressively hire sales teams. We're making a ton of mistakes, losing more money than we used to. Revenue can dip slightly. And if we're not careful, you just aim to seek back to that sort of comfortable zone, if that makes sense. Yeah.
A few times now.
Yeah, and then you kind of revert back to your old behavior and you start going back to the plateau because, for a lot of entrepreneurs, this is the safety net, right? This is the sort of, what would you call it? This is the cave, the safe place evolutionarily. This is where you're safe, and if you want to get more food, you've got to go into some danger. But then what usually happens is, you're getting all this pain, and then you see this, and then it happens again, and you've got to learn to do that again. Any drastic period of expansion just requires you to be in a lot of pain. The more pain, the more progress, basically. Any questions on the pain thing? Yeah?
Do you do the same for employees or people you work with? Do you try and pull out that pain motivator when you start working with them?
Yeah, because it's I know that as soon as someone starts feeling comfortable and happy, they're going to just drop off a cliff.
And so how do you find that, I guess, when you start, either when you hire them or when you're in your conversations with them, how do you pull out what motivates them more intrinsically?
Well, it's not, you don't necessarily have to understand their intrinsic drives. You just have to be able to create pain for them. So, if a sales rep plateaus and gets comfortable at a certain level, you need to be able to pull them aside and be dude, why are you chilling? Why? And you can only do that if you do it yourself. And so this is kind of the thing is a company, once again, it's the top down thing. You need to seek pain, which basically is you just finding the thing that sucks the most. And then everyone under you will start doing the same thing. But if you're just kicking back, chilling, and you just want this automated business, then you'll make 100 grand a month and you'll be chilling, but you won't be able to expand like that.
When you're trying something new and you said sometimes it'll go down before it goes up, how do you know the difference between, oh, I'm just learning and it will go up soon, and I'm just doing something stupid? I should
well, usually you are doing something stupid.
Oh, yeah.
But well, say for example, let's say that there's 3 different things that you can try to get you there. So for example, with us, with the ads, we need to try guaranteeless ads, we need to try new funnels, we need to try new business structures and stuff, we need to add more product, we need to do this, that, and the other. And it's kind of the fortunate thing for you guys is obviously you're here, so we make these mistakes and then we tell you what to avoid and stuff, which is the whole point of a mentorship or a mastermind. But if there's 3 options, one of them is probably going to be optimal and good, but usually you're going to miss it at the beginning. So transparently, candidly, the last couple of months from a profit perspective for us haven't been that good. Nowhere near as good as we're used to. And that's because we are making mistakes and we are trying new things and we are experimenting with new things and testing new things. And in order to break this plateau, you have to restructure incentives, you have to hire more people, you have to build more systems, which costs a lot of money, which then you look at this profit thing and this balance sheet thing and it starts dropping and you think, fuck, I've now got 3 new team members and the profit share's gone up here and I'm now making less money. But you need to have the foresight to realize that all of that will pay off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Jamie, has a question?
Yeah, do you think there's validity, or do you kind of more so
Talk up a little bit, mate.
do you find that there's validity in what most business coaches will say is you need to operate from this place of abundance and then everything changes and that's where you scale the business? Because it kind of sounds like you're definitely not that way inclined, or you have to find the pain or manufacture the pain.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of operating out of a place of abundance is you manage your emotions across the 3 dimensions of time. So you want to, the abundance thing is great to think about the future. because then that gives you this sort of promised land and this outcome, this pleasurable, happy thing that you're moving towards, right? But if you convince yourself that you're wildly abundant in the here and now when you're not, then what happens is you're going to believe that you are, even though you're not, and now you're stripping yourself of any motivation or pain. But if you use it as a sort of carrot, where it's like you're moving towards it, then it's fine. Do you know what I mean? But I don't really buy the whole like, you know, my life is so abundant, it's amazing, because then you believe it, and then you end up like comfortable, and then you're like, wait, my business isn't growing, what the fuck? You know? Yeah. Basically just paying as much as possible. Because like, you know, the last couple of months for us with this like seeking this expansion have been really painful. You know, suddenly like profit share dips, and then like the company starts making less like money, and you're spending more, and like things are breaking, and but that's just like anything like to experience expansion. You know, like the only way to get out of this is to be like, is to kind of, sometimes you can just spike straight up if you have the right decisions, the right mentorship, et cetera, but you get to a point where there's no playbook, or there's so few people that have done it, that you're more inclined to make a mistake. And then you learn from that mistake, and then you sell the solution to that mistake, and then it gets you back up. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the appointment booking thing. And we're going to do this in 3 parts. So you guys all want to talk about setting teams, right? And like systems for booking appointments. I want you all to hold your hand up in a second here. And what I want you all to do is, with a show of fingers, how many times have you watched Acquisition Genesis? Okay, so average mean is like 1 or 2. The reason I'm asking that question is because if you want to build a setting team, if you want to build a sales team, we all understand that you need to know how to sell. If you want to build an operations team, you need to know how to operate. If you want to build a media buying team, you need to know how to media buy. If you want to build a content team, you need to know how to make content, right? All these things we understand. The same thing is true with setting teams. Like, you can't just like hire a bunch of setters and expect it to work out. Now, you can with EasyGrow, and you can use DM Sorcery, and you'll get some results. But ultimately, the main thing you need to understand is like how the mechanism itself works. And like the reason that we are so good at acquisition and appointments and keeping our calendar full is because Bo and I have enough competence to basically teach it. So the first piece of homework I would give all of you guys is watch Acquisition Genesis like 5 times. Because, you know, you've got up here, you've got setters, and then below setters, you've got systems, and then below systems, you've got foundations or first principles. So my point here is all of you guys want to talk about this bit. Can you see the board? All of you guys want to talk about building the setting team and filling the calendar and stuff like that, but can you define feedback loops? Do you understand inputs and outputs? Do you know how to read a spreadsheet? All these things, which most of you are competent enough to do. But second to this is the systems thing, and then the foundations. And basically, like, watching Acquisition Genesis once or twice is not enough for you to understand how to build a 10-person setting team and book 2,000 appointments or 1,000 or 500 appointments a month. But it's enough to get you started and to give you some sort of clue as to what moves you need to make and stuff. But the foundations are so important, and you need to understand it well enough so that you could almost make a video on it and teach it. So that's the first sort of piece of homework, and I know it's a lot to ask, but then again, it fucking sucks and it's painful, right? Which is the whole bloody point. Yeah.
What's the time frame you will do it? Like every like quarter, every
Well, it
month?
depends, because it's not. There's no like. It's not like a binary time frame. It's like if the main problem that everyone, or if the main problem you have is booking appointments, and that's the big bottleneck in the business, then you should just drill this non-stop until you understand it. And then if the appointments start failing again, then you watch the training again. Kind of like you've done with the sales stuff.
Yep.
You know, you can watch the sales stuff over and over again. I mean, Jack, you have this, right, with your sales at the company, where you came on and Jack just fucking crushed it. And then basically he forgot the foundations for like a couple of months and started going off on like venturing off some unbeaten path and just not closing any deals. And then I had to say to him, like, just go and rewatch the sales trainer like 10 times. Because if you forget these, you're fucked. Like, if you forget the foundations of, you know, really it's basically just science, systems, and psychology. If you forget about the scientific method and iteration, if you forget about systems thinking and systems theory, and you forget about psychology and, you know, making compelling offers, then you're just dead in the water. And it doesn't matter, like, I've heard this from a few of you guys, where you're like, oh, I just want to hire like a setter who already knows what they're doing and can just come in and book appointments for me. But it's like, we all know that basically in every role, that's near enough impossible. It is, maybe you'll find someone that's a killer, but it's very unlikely. So, yeah, if you're wondering the foundations, and we're not going to go into this because it is all in acquisition genesis, it is literally just systems, psychology, and science. Like you guys all understand the iterative scientific method process, right? Of versions and testing and stuff, but hands up, how many people have actually tested, let's say how many of you have actually done like 4 or 5 proper scientific tests for your outbound efforts? Yeah, so very few of you. That's the point, is it's like you can't just hire a big setting team and be like, yeah, there we go, great. You know, and even like using the stuff in EasyGrow will work, but if you really want it to work and you really want to, you know, get the exponential results and build, you need to sort of build your own thing, your own scripts, your own processes and stuff. And the way that you do that is by becoming an expert in it. Like the reason that we find it so easy to book appointments is because Bo and I have got these things basically as part of our identity at this point, and therefore, you know, building the systems is very easy and very straightforward. And like, you know, literally that just little show of hands shows it all. How many of you have actually done like scientific testing and applied acquisition genesis? It's not enough to just like watch it in like 1.5 times speed and take some notes. Like you need to actually do it. So we'll talk about the system thing quickly. So you should all be familiar with the diagram I'm about to draw. And this is kind of, I know this is like basic shit that you guys are probably all familiar with, right? Systems thinking. But we have our processes, we have our inputs, we have our outputs, and we have our feedback. And then we have our environment. And I know you guys all know this, but if you really knew this and you really understood it on a level, none of you would struggle with appointment booking. Like if all of you guys understood how to properly use the scientific method, if you all understood how systems really worked and you knew psychology to a T, then you would know what to do to build appointment booking systems. So for all of you guys that are struggling with appointments, there is a gap in your knowledge on one of those 3 things. Because how could it possibly be otherwise? If you know how your market works and you know how the human brain works and how the right stimuli that triggers the response you want, and you know how to build like systems, and you know how to do the rest of it, like do the scientific method, you'll find the answer.
So, like, for appointment setting, like through, like, let's say, for example, cold email, like, according to the scientific method, you would only change one variable at a time, right? For it to be tested in, like, isolation, right?
Yeah.
But let's say the environment changes where you have to introduce enough variability to be able to have good deliverability for that matter. Like, how do you then go about testing that and not just have one change or one variable at a time, but have to like change entire like copies just so that?
This is the thing, man, is you're thinking too small. So you're thinking about like you're thinking about having a single test. So what we do with our research and development is at any given time, I mean, Sawi, how many tests would we run at any given time? Like 5?
Yeah.
So at any given time, like if you run one test changing one variable at a time, then you can only ever iterate and test one thing at a time. But if you build a comprehensive system, you can run like 8 tests at the same time. and then you find what works 8 times faster. Like, your progress is limited by the volume of testing that you do.
No, so like that's true. Like we are testing like 4 or 5 things at a time, but they all have, let's say, 2 to 3 different variables in them, 4 variables at the same time, just so that we can get through the deliverability aspect. So it kind of like gets
What
hard
do you
to
mean get
test.
this deliverability aspect?
So at this point, I feel like in cold email, like you can't necessarily have just one copy. It has to have enough variability in like words and how the sentences are structured, just so that it can pass through the algorithm.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're just tanking your deliverability.
yeah.
Which is very different from like, let's say from like a year and a half or 2 years ago, where you could like have the same copy and you could like change the subject line, but like have 5 tests of 5 subject lines. But now those in themselves have to have enough variability so that the algorithm doesn't pick up on that. It's
Oh, so you mean like every email you send has to be slightly different?
yeah. So like, how do you control like?
Well,
the-
okay, so I mean, you would pick the part of. I mean, is that true?
We don't. You talk about spin tax, and like
Spin tax plus like variability on top. Like even
Fine,
with
spin
spin
tax.
tax, we noticed that it was not variable enough, and then
Like having different variations. So like one, you know how in CD you can have different variants for a first email and then a second email and a third email. So having like,
so it depends what you're variating for, right?
What's
So
spin tax, just for everybody?
spin tax is when every single cold email that you send to your market, you have to use some variations in the words you're using, right? So you'll say like the system, a system, and system, right? Just so that you can get past the algorithms with cold email, right? But you have to control how much you're variating every single iteration, right? So instead of having a whole email that is completely customized that you can't control, you just say, right, I'm just going to use a personalized first line, and then that's a variable that you can control. Now, granted, they're all going to be ever so slightly different, but you can control it as best as you can, right? Because with cold email these days is hard. You can't do the standard scientific method for that, but you can choose which aspects that you do want to control.
Dude, like for example, just every email, just sign it off with a different name. And then instead of saying thanks, just say kind regards. Or like put a comma at some different point. Do you know what I mean? Like those little, like when it comes to an experiment, like, you know, whether you say thanks at the end of an email, or cheers, or all the best, or kind regards, or warm regards, that's not going to change your conversion rate in any way, shape, or form. Maybe by like a 0.1%. Same thing if you sign it off as Prakar, or Charlie, or Tom, or Josh, or anything like that. It's not going to make a difference.
no, so we do that. Like we used to do that like a year and a half ago. I'm talking about like changing like the first lines itself, and also like variability in the offer and how it's like structured in terms of like.
But I'm not convinced that you need to do that. If you personalize the first line and you sign it off differently every time, surely the email looks different enough to everybody.
Well, it depends what you're customizing like. So for example, if we are going to do a completely different body copy for every single individual person we target
Talk
to,
up a bit, mate.
we're going to make sure we're mentioning the pain points, right? And the pain point we mention is going to be the same for every single avatar we
Okay, I got that.
target.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
in the same niche, right? So we control that aspect of it. When we say the offer, that's always in the same part of the email, right? The main variance that you can pull from a test with cold email is the pain points you speak about and the customization that's relevant to that specific lead, right? Now they're going to be different for every single lead, but you're still talking about the same thing. And that's still going to resonate with that specific type of market in the same way. So instead of changing the whole copy, you're just changing the pain point you're speaking about relevant to that specific person, right? Does that make sense?
I think the point that I'm making is like easy grow and the systems in easy grow and the copy and the scripts and stuff, like you can copy your way to multi-6, maybe 7 figures. But if you want to get to multi-7 figures, 8 figures, you need to build your own thing. And you can't just blindly use the same DM source through script. Like in order to get to multi-7 or 8 figures, you need advantage. And the only way that you achieve advantage is by building your own thing that no one's copying, doing your own thing. It's kind of like people that want to run ads and then they just go to my ads library and they just copy my ads. It's like you're never gonna get to like multi-7 or 8 figures doing that. And the only way that you arrive at your own thing is through systems, science, and psychology. So if you understand the foundations, which is just acquisition genesis to a T, then you can build your own thing. Like, I know that Easy Grow works, and you can use the DM sorcery scripts and stuff, and you should still follow the same frameworks like the personalized videos or the looms and stuff. But the people that crush it and come in are the people that watch Acquisition Genesis and they understand it really well, and then they build their own thing. And the only reason they have the competence to build their own thing is because they understand the foundations well enough to do it.
But even I did that. So when I was running the setting team, and I first came on board, Charlie gave me a script to use for outreach. And full transparency, I used that for about 2 weeks. I used that for 2 weeks, and then I just started changing things. Because I watched Acquisition Genesis, like, I would schedule an hour every single morning to just go through the theory side of things and then iterate. And by the time I actually started hiring setters underneath me, I'd gone through, I think, 11 or 12 different variations of like an entry opener message to use. And most people, they just use one, see a little bit of success, and then start hiring setters. But I didn't feel comfortable in hiring setters until I knew that I had something that was airtight, you know?
I think, sorry mate.
Setters aren't thinkers, they're not creative, they're just doers, right? And you need to view your appointment booking system. Well, setters are like, they're doers with goals and aspirations. They want to be somewhere in their life. And you need to view your appointment booking system as a vehicle for them to get to where they want to be, right? And you use that by incentivizing them, by paying them, right? And if your system is airtight, then the setters can just come in, follow the rules that you set for them, and get to where they want to be in their life, right? So it's like an ecosystem you have to build.
Yep. I think what people think is that they go into DM Sorcerer, they go into Terminator Looms, and they think that's the only way to get appointments through cold outbound or cold email. And like, what I can tell you is, think of it like, it really is like you're a scientist trying to discover stuff. Because I can guarantee you that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of opening messages, strings of words put together that would crush, but people just haven't found yet. Mm-hmm. You're kind of like some fucking like archaeologist just trying to dig it up. And then when you find it, like there could be a string of, because really all it is just words. So there could be a string of words for an opening message that you could put together that could get a 20% appointment booking rate. Mm. You just have to find it. And the only way you find it is through iteration and testing. For example, we've got an R&D test at the moment with cold email, basically reaching out to people with a really simple email. Basically, well, how does it go? It's the one where we're like being their friend or something.
We just reach out to people via cold email and we say, look, we've got an appointment booking system. I'm booking 5 or 7, maybe sometimes 10 or more appointments every single month. Can I explain how it works? And it's like, but we're not like pitching them. We're just saying, hey, we got this cool thing. It might be a good fit for you. And we're more like targeting a specific person rather than trying to talk to the whole market. Because most people, they try and craft like a cold email copy or an outreach copy speaking to that whole target avatar. And people can smell that when you reach it to, when they receive that in their emails. So you almost want to speak directly to one person, be their friend, use abbreviations, and actually just try and help that one person. And that's just crushing it for us.
There's just so many, like, I can picture it in my head, like all of these pieces, like blurry pieces of copy with like question marks on them that would work. It would be like, imagine if you got a cold email from someone saying like, hey man, saw we're in the same space. I thought I'd help a brother out. I've got this system that I've just found. It's not perfect, but you know, I've booked like 6 or 7 appointments this month. I haven't closed any of them yet, but I think some of them will. If you want, I can just send you a loom just explaining how it works and you can check it out. If you don't want to, no stress, but I thought I might help you out. No one does that. No, that's like a new thing. And there's hundreds of those. Like off the top of my head, maybe you could, I don't know, put myself on the spot here. Maybe you could reach out to someone and just be like, and just send them like a question mark with just appointments, question mark. Like this is the thing, is that there's just so many, that could work. People could reply being like, what do you mean appointments? And then you'd have to like think through the next thing. But there's so many different variables that could work. But what happens is people, rightfully so, they come into Easy Grow for the systems and they just want to blindly copy and paste them, which is more than enough to get them to, you know, to add, as proof shown by a lot of people in this room, to add 6, multi-6, sometimes 7 or multi-7 figures. But if you want to build a sustainable machine, it has to be your own. And the value in Easy Grow is not in the scripts, and it's not in the processes and the SOPs, it's in the foundations. Because the only reason that we arrived at DM Sorcery or Terminate Illume or the cold calling script is because we knew the foundations. It wasn't something that we just stumbled across. It took us like 50 tests to find. And we're still testing stuff now. So, and then, yeah, you are ultimately constrained by how many tests you run. People think like, and this is my fault because I didn't say this in Easy Grow and I probably should change it, is people think you can only run one test at a time. But if you've got like 4 or 5, you're going to find the right thing 4 or 5 times faster. It's like if you were an archaeologist trying to like dig something up and you've got like 10 dig sites, you're 10 times more likely to find something than if you've got one.
If you've got one setter and you're trying to work out like the opening hook message, like how can you run 4, 5 tests at the same time?
Well, this is kind of what we're going to get into this afternoon of like, I think that if you're at the point where you're trying to test things and you don't know quite what works yet, then you shouldn't have a setter.
You don't test it with setters, full stop.
Yeah, the setter should...
Ops manager / setter.
Well, it's the same thing. It should be you doing it.
But then I haven't got, it's capacity and resources, because we got an inbound system, like I need to fulfill the sales calls on that. So that's like my priority. So I've kind of outsourced the setting to Jen, who's also doing ops. But it's, so yeah, I haven't run the system.
Outsourcing that to like an assistant isn't necessarily going to work.
It won't work, man.
Because she's not got the pain to want to solve it as quick as you do, right? For example, Charlie, right? He was sending personalized looms for 3 hours every single morning and doing then 8 sales calls in the afternoon when they were first scaling Imperium, weren't you?
I was still doing DMs at 100 grand a month myself.
I did it for 2 weeks. So I got some understanding of it.
Yeah. This is the thing, man. Like your ops assistant, she's not as incentivized as you. She's not in any pain, and she's not as smart as you. Like giving that, like trying just having her figure it out, it won't work. It needs to be you. And I get, you've got sales calls and shit, but ultimately, man, like if building an outbound appointment booking system is like the biggest thing, the biggest bottleneck for you moving forward, then you have to make time for it.
You're not trying to scale it yourself, right? All you need is a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Like 10 videos a day, 10 emails a day, your own approach, test that for as long as you can until you just find something that's starting to stick. Then increase the volume ever so slightly. The minute you've got a proof of concept, hire a setter and do all the scale from there.
Yeah,
this is the thing, Chris, is like you're in the stage now where you shouldn't even be trying to set appointments. You should just be trying to figure out what works. And if you put your attachment onto booking the appointments and then it doesn't work, now you get all annoyed and frustrated, but you just need to figure it out.
So,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No.
Will, when you're testing new things, you obviously have a setting team now, right? So you're not the one that is actively sending stuff anymore, right?
I still send Trojans every single day.
Be Rodion, right?
No, I can't trust Rodian with it.
Fair.
No, it's honestly, I'm guilty of it as well, because for a few months, I stopped doing setting. And then I noticed my skills was going down. So I noticed that I immediately had to start doing appointment setting again. So I started crafting cold emails and sending them manually. I've started running DM Sorcery in the program myself the last 2 weeks, just so I can learn and have that feedback loop. Because if I'm not on the ground doing it myself, then how can I teach my setters how to do it?
The only reason he has to do that is because of you guys, because it's an R&D effort. So once you've got a system that works, that is your own, that no one else can copy or can find, and isn't being used by 1,000 other people, then the half-life of that system should be a good couple of years.
Couple of years, really?
Yeah. Because
But even then, okay, let's say we fast forward a couple of years later, and you're at whatever you are. I feel like you should be able to. Maybe it's just a belief of mine, which isn't true, but like I feel like you should be able to find someone like Will, who can then like if the system broke, for example, Charlie, right? In a year's time, DM Sorcery wasn't working anymore. Like, would you be going back to doing the setting?
No, because like the setting team, the setting team is a springboard to profitability and cold traffic testing to then run ads. So you shouldn't have a setting team once you're at like multi-7 or near 8 figures. We only have one because of for R&D purposes. But my point is that you build your own thing, you prove it to work, no one else is doing it, it works specifically in your market. You can rinse that thing for a year or two before you see any diminishing returns because no one's copying it, right? And by that point, it will have made you enough money and given you enough proof of concept for you to start running ads. Then you're free of it.
So if I've got the ability to spend like $500 a day on ads, which I'm doing, you would recommend just do all that iterative testing, scientific method, do all that through my ads rather than try and do that.
Well, it depends. It depends entirely on how profitable you are and like how well the ads are going and stuff. Because if you're spending $500 a day on ads and your sales conversion, your show rate's north of 60%, your sales conversion rate's north of 20%, and you've got a great AOV and you've got great retention and a low refund rate, then you just go hard on ads. You skip the setting thing because you found proof. The reason you do the setting thing is to find proof of concept so you can run ads. It's to battle test your show rate and your sales system and your product. Because the reason you want to do the setting thing before ads and figure that out is because as soon as you run ads, you enter a very dangerous territory, which is basically if things don't work, you start to lose money. And you know, to lose money in an info business is you've got to try really fucking hard to do that. You know, so the setting team thing, it's not forever. It's just this, it's this little training ground to then eventually run ads, basically. And you know, the only way it's going to work at the sort of multi-7 figure level is finding your own thing.
Yeah. So my particular issue with this is that run ads, they do really well. So I've got the proof of concept, it's great. But then when they start to die off, I haven't got anything to back it up. I guess I'm not doing enough testing.
That's the thing though, man. That's a media buying issue.
Yeah,
that's not an ads issue, because if that was true and ads just died off, we'd be fucked.
Yeah, it's true. I don't do nowhere near enough creative. I don't do enough testing. So that's the focus I should be doing. Not cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, like you know, I'll record like 25 new hooks every month or two.
Yeah.
You know, and then like Billy's watching it like a hawk, and then we've got new funnels being tested and stuff. Like, ads don't just fall off.
Yeah.
Unless you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thanks.
So with testing, you're just fighting entropy, basically, of the market.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, you only need to test until you find something that works consistently. It's kind of like a sales script. Like, you know, you'll build it and it'll work, and then bang, you're good. But then after a year or two, like, it might start to stop working because you've reached out to everyone, or everyone else starts to use it and stuff like that. But like when we found DM Sorcery at the beginning, like DM Sorcery and Terminator Looms were how we got to multi-7 figures. You guys have to realize we got to what like 250K a month with outbound. And the reason that they worked so well, like our appointment booking rate on DM Sorcery was like 12% something. And our Terminator Loom appointment booking rate was something like 7 or 8%. And that was because we made them ourselves. And the reason we could get to multi-7 figures so quickly and so easily was because like no one else was doing this. No one else in the market had seen it. And so for basically 18 months, we had free reign. Now everyone uses them and they still work, but they're just, you know, less effective. If you guys want to learn like, how did we do it? The only reason it worked is because we built our own thing. It wasn't because of the things, you know, it was because we built them ourselves. They still work. You can still get to, you know, 100K a month, 200K a month with them. It's just a lot harder. But you need to build your own thing. And then if you want to copy us, that's what you do. You copy the building your own thing. So,
you know, when you say you're running multiple tests, is that in like different areas, or is it with the same thing? Like,
it would usually be in the same thing. So like, for example, the cool thing that we have is we did all of our testing, the Terminator Loom system, DM Sorcery system, we built in the Northflow days, so for our agency. And we were like, oh, let's just try our luck and see if they work here. But I remember for me to find the DM Sorcery opener and the script for the VSL, I think I must have ran like, in the gym niche specifically, I reached out to every gym owner like 2 or 3 times. And like, you know, I'd have like, I've got them on my drive. I had like 15 spreadsheets and like, you know, fucking like 40, 50 iterations and like tens of thousands of messages. And then like, I was like, oh shit, this thing works. And then when you find it, like bang. But fortunately for you guys, like I didn't know all of the, like I knew the Aquis and Genesis stuff, but it took me like a couple of years to figure out how to actually do it myself, like the building it and the foundations and stuff. But you guys don't have to go through a couple of years because you have the foundations from Access and Genesis. You know how to test, you know how to build systems, you know how to regulate your emotions, you know how to track metrics, you know how to manage metrics, make decisions, et cetera, et cetera. That, I figured that all out by doing it myself. It took me years, which is then why I was qualified to teach it. So
What I'm trying to understand is like more tactically, when you're running multiple tests, how do you know it's not interfering with each other, or like, are you not supposed to test one thing at a time?
You have to like, you get fuck off massive lead source, and then you segment it and you bucket it and you make sure that there's no crossover and stuff like that. There's like a lot of infrastructure behind it, but it's pretty simple to figure out if you think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, there'll always be some overlap and some interference, but what usually happens is one variable just crushes, and it's so obvious what works. Because like the first iteration of the opening message with DM sorcery, because obviously the whole thing was like asking permission, being like, hey, have I got your permission to pitch you? And like the first variation was something along the lines of like would it be all right if I tried to sell you something? And then it started working, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm going to pull on this thread a little bit. And then like, you know, didn't work that well, but it worked pretty well. And then I was like, how can I ask that in a sort of, because what I did is I found this like little this little gem of psychology, which was basically just permission-based marketing, but no one had done it on DM before, and no one had done it with video before. And I found like, I was like, okay, I'm combining these things. I'm combining this idea of personalized video, selfie video, which is a pattern interrupt. And then I'm taking this like permission-based thing and this sort of soft approach and putting them in control. And I was like, how do I like shuffle these variables around? And I ended up coming up with this whole like, hey John, it's Charlie here, look, I have got something to pitch you, but I do not want to do it without your permission. And I'd hate to try and sell you something without you being comfortable. So just send me, and then the thumbs up thing was another thing. So I was like, you know, the first iteration of that was what I got it from the cold email thing of just saying, reply yes with one word if you want more information. And that worked. Then I tried the thumbs up thing, but because I was doing DM sorcery on Facebook, the thumbs up button was just so available. So the reply rate just spiked. So it's all these little things that after like a year or two of testing, you're kind of like part of the system. Yeah.
Charlie, when you were doing that, like, so you're doing that through DMs, you're not really doing it scientifically. You're not necessarily going like version 1, version 2. You're just kind of iterating as you go.
At the beginning, it was all based off intuition, because I didn't really have the skill or the know-how to do the iterative process and start tracking it and stuff. But then when I found Sam Ovens and the way that he tracked his ads, because no one ever looked at outbound, and because people that ran ads, they had perfect tracking systems, perfect systems for testing, scientific method, etc. But no one had ever looked at outbound from that perspective. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to borrow this like media buying principle, you know, kind of like a big corporation with data. And then when I applied that, that's when I started making real progress. But I was like nearly halfway there. But when I found the data tracking thing, it just clicked. I was like, oh shit, this is what I've been missing.
Yeah, so like with the DMs though, like when I was doing it for 2 weeks, like there was some there was some sort of intuition, and I was like just changing things every like 5 or 6 or 7 like DMs and off responses. So you're just, for a bit, you're just doing that. You're not necessarily writing down every little variation that you change. You're just doing it intuitively till you find something that kind of works, and then do you kind of like systematize?
No, I mean, if I had to go back and do it again, I would definitely start with the whole tracking thing and the meticulous science.
So like 10 DMs like this, iterate something.
Well,
that's version 1.
10's not really enough. Like I would use like to test the opening hook, I would want to see that 30 people had seen the opening message to then gauge if it was going to work or not. Blah blah blah. But I tested so many different opening messages, and the one that stood out was this like, hey, can I get your permission to pitch you thing?
And just going back to this, where you're running like 4 or 5 tests at the same time, like with where I'm at, starting outbound DMs, like you can't really do that. Would that be fair to say?
That's more for like cold email.
Okay.
Honestly.
Right.
Like, because running 5 different test variants yourself for cold DM would be a full-time job, you know? You're not looking to, like, if you, that's the meta. That's like going to be optimal for you guessing what works. But if you don't have those resources, just send one blanket message, do it to 30 people, look at the metrics, change one small thing and do it again. And you'll know after testing that over like 10 or 11 different iterations and actually like analyzing what the market's telling you, you'll have something that's working unique to you.
The main thing is like you start with a hypothesis. So you get your hypothesis from the niche and from the market, because you've done hundreds of sales calls in your market. So you should know, you should be able to create like a hypothesis using your knowledge of EasyGrow and your knowledge of the market. You should be able to create your own thing, and then you should be able to create quite a few of them, and then you should just be able to write them out and then test them. And then you'll discover something. And then it might not work perfectly, but you'll be like, it's kind of like a sign like you're on the right track. And then what you'll do is you'll create like 5 new hypotheses around that thing that works. And then one of those will work a little bit better, and then again and again. And then before you know it, you've got like a 10% appointment booking rate. And no one else knows what the fuck you're doing. And you're laughing to the bank because with 2 setters, you can book like 50 to 100 appointments a month.
But I would just, that being said, I would have kind of just stopped. Once we're in KPI, which we're almost in KPI now, we're almost at that 2% ABR, I'd stop there.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I feel like probably could go further.
Well, you can always, I mean, there's no end to efficiency. But, you know, to be fair to what you said as well, like I did this 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's a different game then. You know, like if I did it now, it's not to say that the conversion rates might not have been half, because, you know, more people do cold DMs now, and everyone's more familiar with the video opening message and stuff like that. But all you're looking to do is just find something that's in KPI. You don't need like a 10% appointment booking rate. If you get like a 2 or 3, and then you get like 6 or 7 setters, now you've got like a whole 2 sales reps filled.
I have a question. Sorry, we're going to go first. Okay. It's kind of R&D related, but it also is with appointments. When you're testing stuff, how do you know that it's going to work in all the different niches, right? Because you're testing in like the agency consulting market. How do you know that it's going to work for like brick and mortar?
Because no matter what niche you go to, there's human beings.
Yeah.
So it's quite simple, because I'd argue agency niche is the hardest niche to make work with outreach.
Yeah.
Any niche is easier than agency niche because they know the strategies.
Well,
they get bombarded with ads and outreach every day already. So
It's
if you can make it work for that.
man. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a med spa owner or a gym owner or an agency owner, like it's all the same. Like it's kind of like, it's just people, and then there's just different business models put on top of them. The business model doesn't change the person or the way they think or the way they feel. It just means they might respond slightly differently to different type of language. So like a gym owner might respond to members, and a HVAC person might respond to air conditioning installations. But beyond the nuances of the technical things, we're all human. We all have the same biases. We all have the same issues and the same stuff. It's not different.
There is variation to this though, because if I were still working with gym owners, I would, for example, do DM sorcery in a gym. You know?
Well, that's like Dimmy with his olive oil business.
Oh yeah, literally. It's like little things, right? Like if I was still working with gym owners, I would record my looms in a gym. I would make the DM sorceries in a gym, because there's an immediate connect. Or at least I would do it with like in like fitness equipment with like a dumbbell or something on my desk or something. Because there's identification and with you. What do electricians use? Is it like a tool or something that they use? I'm serious. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean,
wires around your neck or something, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys laugh, but that works. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Right?
You should do it in like a fuse box or something.
Yeah.
Like a really ancient rusted fuse box, and you're about to touch it and be like, nah, I got you.
Yeah, and Jack, you should get like a hat with like always be closing and some stuff, you know? Like it's like, or like something every sales
like
rep.
a massive like Wolf of Wall Street thing
Yeah.
behind you. Like there's so much that you can try that would work.
Huh.
You know?
Yeah.
Like what's another example? Like if let's say that you work with dentists, just like, I don't know, fucking brushing your teeth whilst doing it or something.
Get a lab coat on. Get a lab coat on.
Yeah?
Simple.
Yeah, literally. A stethoscope.
People don't think about this because they for some reason think that outreach and organic outreach isn't marketing. Like we spend months building our ads and funnels, but for some reason DM sorcery is like, okay, oh, Charlie, nice system, and then just start doing it. It's like, what niche am I working with? How am I going to say it? How am I going to look?
Yeah.
What is my niche? What is my niche like? How am I going to reference that into the videos, into the outreach?
You could even like include like a joke at the end or something. Like, you know, what did the electrician say to the plumber? Because but this is the thing, is like, no one fucking does that. So when they receive that, it's this pattern interrupt where suddenly you're not just this dude with a phone, you're like one of them.
Huh.
Yeah.
And then when you understand your niche and you get them, and it's easy.
Like Josh, you're working with SMMAs, right? Everyone knows the Ty Lopez ad, right? So get a DM sorcerer like a Prius in a garage, and that's your opening.
Here in my garage, you know.
Here in my garage, I can get you more appointments. Like it's just think, you know.
And then whisper knowledge at the end.
Yeah.
That's my excuse to rent a Lambo.
No, if you do it with a Lambo, no one will fucking buy from you, mate. So.
No, get like a Prius or like a golf car or something.
Yeah.
You know? Make it
Yeah,
sense.
get one of those like child toy cars, like one of those little ones, and then record the ad in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yo, yeah, so quick question. It's a little bit more tactical, but we did build like somewhat our own system. We had like a 10% ABR from cold email and like a 5% close rate on the actual cold emails. Now, our thing that was like almost, I guess, our pattern interrupt was free value. Like it was for a very, very specific YouTube niche. And we did like this really, really like specific audit, which we're basically able to automate. It took like 5 minutes per one. Now we run out of like the people in the niche, so we need to like rethink it. But I was just kind of interested in your philosophy more than anything, because a lot of Easy Grow is a lot more focused on like the psychology rather than like necessarily anything around free value, rather than maybe the inbound systems. Is there a reason? Is it just scale? Like why you guys don't ever really lean too much into like the actual free value on any of the outbound?
We do realize free value is psychology as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's all psychology.
I guess why is that not a psychological trigger that you guys lean into a lot?
I think I just don't. What did you say your close rate was?
50%.
50%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, man, is that it probably works. We've just never used it. It kind of comes back to that same thing we talked about yesterday, where it's like, you know, if we give someone access to the program next day, we know there's no issue. So it's the same thing, like the free value thing and the audit thing, and that probably works as well. Yeah. But for us, like we've you know, when you build systems, you've got these things called initial conditions, which basically it's kind of like a way of doing something. It's like a bias, and then all of your future iterations are it's called the law of sensitive dependence on initial conditions. If you take if you're taking like a transatlantic journey on like a big ship from one end of the world to the other, if you're off by like 0.1 degrees, then when you land, you're going to be thousands of miles away. So basically, as more time and volume elapses, the initial condition bias becomes amplified. So for us, the reason that we're biased against free value is because in the beginning, we never did it. Yeah, so if there is a world in which I was psychologically predisposed to try that at the beginning, and now Easy Grow is all about free value. But because we didn't try it at the start, we didn't have it at the finish, if that makes sense. And so, you know, I'm not against it, and I'm not here saying it doesn't work or anything like that. I'm just saying that we found a way that works and that we wouldn't change or test it because.
I would argue we do it with your YouTube. Your whole brand is built around. Mate. Your whole brand is built around free value.
Talk up a bit, mate. You can't just go like.
I would say that
no,
Charlie's
don't be afraid. Just fucking shout.
I would say Charlie's whole brand is built around free value.
Yeah, the inbound stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, the inbound stuff is where it definitely makes sense. But I was interested because I thought you were gonna hint at something, and I'm not sure if you were. Where when you asked about my close rate, do you think that free value might decrease close rate? Like, I wasn't sure if that's
No, I just was curious because I thought you said your close rate was 5%. So
no,
I was like, how fucking got
5% cold email to close. So we close 1 in 20 cold emails.
I think it's like it kind of just comes back to what I just said. Like, you know, because we never did it, we never do it.
Makes sense.
And you know, maybe there is a world in which we test it and we try it out, but the thing with free value is it has to be really fucking good.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know how scalable it is. I don't know how automatable it is. You know, like I like things that are simple, scalable, predictable, consistent, and that can just be easily automated with as few moving parts as possible. Which is how we've built, like, it's the reason DM Sorcery is video, thumbs up, calendar link. Like there's only 5 points of friction in that system. And, you know, if you've got to be like, you know, which PDF would you like? And, you know, what about this and this? And it could work, but we've just never tried it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
When I first watched Acquisition Genesis, something didn't click about the forces of irrationality when you give every bias, and now it just clicked. Like, should we just like take one bias and just iterate with the Darwinian?
You're talking about the cognitive biases.
Yes, exactly. Should we just think like, okay, there is this bias. Let's try with the stimuli.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of how you create a hypothesis. Is you do your like avatar thing. So you know your niche, and you think about your niche, and then you look at all the cognitive biases and the flaws of human psychology, and then you sort of fuse them together. And basically, here's the point: any string of words or any word that you use in your acquisition for your, whether it's ads, whether it's funnels, whether it's VSLs, whether it's videos, whether it's emails, whether it's cold, any word should serve the purpose of triggering a bias. And this is where people go wrong with email, is they just write their emails and think, oh, that looks good. But you need to engineer it where every single couple of words strung together in some way, shape, or form, like, tickles a bias. You know?
That's what I
never use a word that doesn't, like, or a string of words that doesn't, like, in some way, shape, or form give you some sort of psychological leverage in the acquisition.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah. Like if I'm writing a VSL, like everything I put in there is then reverse engineered. Like, how does that in some way, shape, or form manipulate someone? Which is basically what it is. Because human psychology is very predictable. And if you understand how people tick and how they work, then you can start putting words in front of them and stimuli in front of them that trigger responses that you want. It's not hard, you just need to understand it.
Yeah, I had a question. So right now I'm not doing any outbound. Everything's sort of coming from YouTube inbound. Would you have the same philosophy of like testing things with videos and like sort of that side of things?
Not really, because like, to a degree, yes, but not anywhere near as much.
Okay.
Because like, there's so many variables that are outside of your control with YouTube that you just can't, it's not a controlled test. And also YouTube is just something that you just get better at, because the ultimate variable is the quality of the video and how you deliver it.
Yeah.
And that's not something, that's just something that improves with time. It's kind of like if you were like a footballer and you're trying to like iterate, like taking your penalties. It's like the only way that you get better at penalties is by just doing more. And there'll be feedback and there'll be things that you should listen to, but there's no like spreadsheet for it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
It's more intuitive. I might be wrong there, but I think that's how I've done it.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering is things like, oh, when you call to action at the end versus first 90 seconds, like
Well, from an appointment booking perspective, it absolutely, you know, can work. But it's the same thing where like, the problem with tracking appointments from YouTube videos is, let's say that you make a video and you put the call to action in the end, and then like, you know, and let's say that video gets you way more appointments. It could be the call to action, but it could also be the fact that your last 2 videos did well. It could be your recent email blast. It could be the fact that your competitor didn't upload this week. It could be the fact you're in a good mood. It could be the thumbnail. It could be the title.
you can't isolate, was it the call
But you
to action?
can't isolate it because so many things are outside of your control. With email and with DMs and stuff, you can name the variables on one hand. But with something like YouTube, with ads, it's easy as well. But with YouTube specifically, like there's so many things that could lead towards an uptick in appointments. You know, is it the fact that you changed the funnel, or is it the headline? Is it the video? Is it the fact that this week we had more calendar availability? Like it's just impossible to track.
I got you, yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, I think we'll break for lunch there. And this afternoon, we'll actually get into the practical setting stuff, as I'm sure you guys want to get some.
You want to do the one-on-one thing first?
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. So what we'll do after lunch is Bronca is going to do a sort of really, I know that sales management wasn't top of the list, but Bronca is going to do like a quick sort of how to do a sales one-to-one and like how to just some really quick like sales management stuff to keep people in check. And then Sailway will do like a big setting talk, and we'll basically just get all of this setting stuff out of the way. But remember, everything Sailway talks about is irrelevant. Pause, if you don't know all this stuff. All right?